Thank you. So nice to see so many people still here. I mean, it's quite amazing. So I hope you're not tired enough. Just one more talk, then it's finally weekend. So, quick about me. My name is Fredrik, and I'm the head of IT security at Basalt, and we're doing both pen testing and also software development role. So we need to be doing a lot of purple team exercise, and that's why we start looking into this threat emulation and adverse simulation and all the words of it. And I know there's a lot of little time here, and people need to run, so I put up a QR code. Those seems to be trusted nowadays, so scan it if you can. And I will have it on the last slide as well. So let's get started to it. So what is adverse emulation? Well, basically you're looking into how adversaries done before, done attacks, what is documented. So you're basically looking into the adversary's done some kind of attack, and there are steps how to replicate that attack. So what you're going to do from a tester side is you're going to try to redo all the steps and see if your infrastructure is resilient against similar attacks, or if you can document it at least. So, and another good thing with this, if you have the right tooling, is that you can do continuously evaluation of it. If you have a good threat intel on your adversaries, then you can really fast roll out and check all the machines in your environment to see if it's on the right track. And it's also a little bit for pen testing as well, because you're actually doing with some kind of plan. You're going with more threat actor-based pen testing. So you want to simulate or follow some kind of instructions. But like I said, it's not the first thing you do if you're still trying to manage your assets in the company. Maybe it's not for you, you're still doing vulnerability scanning. But when you get more mature, you get up some kind of blue team that's starting to have some kind of C and SOC environment, you log actions, then this is a really good next step to take your purple teaming to make sure you have all the new threat actors in place. So you've done a lot of pen testing, and you've done like, oh, but we are quite safe. We have our vendors sold us these hacker-proofs, XDR or firewalls, and we doesn't find much at the pen testing, and you can get this false sense of security. Well, in war, maybe as Sweden, we can fall back on maybe some other country defending us, but in cyber war, it's not really that easy. So if you are a CISO that's thinking that, well, we've done pen testing and we rarely get any kind of results of it, I think this video really demonstrates a good sense of false security. We can do everything. Well, we told you so. There was some gaps in the environment. And I think Benjamin Franklin said it's good. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So you need to have some kind of planning when you're going in to do your pest engagement. It makes much more better result, and you get much more coverage of what you want to do. So you're not doing the same test over and over again and feeling that you mitigated all the risks. But there are many different types of plans. You have the adversary emulation that I'm talking a lot about, where you can follow a threat actor step by step very closely. But you also have the one that's called adversary simulation. And that's basically just the semantics of you taking a lot of threat actors to put all the techniques together and just trying to figure out. So if you have a ransomware-based threat actor that's doing a lot of ransomware attacks, the next step could be putting 3 or 4 of them together and checking like how would the new AI ransomware do. So that's another way to look at it. So how do we start with this? Well, these are basic if you want to really simple it down. It's first you do is trying to understand your own organization. What kind of sector are you in? Are you in the private or government sector? Are you, what type of risk could you be exposed in there? And then when you have that down, you start looking at what adversaries could be interested in those sectors. So you will see there's a lot of adversaries to choose from. It's hundreds of them. So what you do then is you go through all these adversaries and gather together with all these techniques, the tactics, the procedures, and filter out what you want to test. And then you run it, of course. But the whole thing with looking into yourself and the enemy, I think it's a good quote from the art of war. If you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not enemies, for a victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. So I think it's a nice quote. But the trouble is in cybersecurity, you really hardly know who is knocking the door, who's doing the attacks. So you really need to be proactive. And a way to be proactive is this adverse emulation and simulation, because then you're always trying to do these kind of attacks on your company. You're trying to figure out if, will this work in we're trying our firewalls, we're trying our new solutions. Can we detect it, the CMTL, so you don't stand there and wait and it happen, but you're proactively testing it. So it's a way to stay a little bit step ahead. So there are many different applications of this. And you can sum it up to why, what, and how. So why would anyone not attack my organization? Well, if you're a research organization, maybe you have some sensitive IP, then you maybe figure out that, oh, they're going to want to steal it. If you're running some critical energy infrastructure, of course, they want to wipe it. If it's a war scenario, they just want to make it shut down. So try to figure out why they want to attack us is one step of it. Next part is what they're going to do, and then you start looking at the tactics, like what should they be able to do, where is it from, everyone from discovery to the end of exfiltration, and then you go into how they do it. And that's more the technical depth, exactly what commands are running. And that's why we focus on the threat actors. We are getting the how and why, at least, more documented when we're going to sort out this. So if we're going to do this, we need to first start to understand our own organization. So you need to really put together your organization profile and what potential attack vectors it is giving to it. And looking at that, you need to really see what sector, like I said, what you're in. Are you in the gas, research, are you developing software, is for private or for government sector. And you also need to start mapping what kind of software is running on as well. Are you running an exposed Exchange server? Are you using NPM packages? Well, if you do that, then you probably know by now it's been a stressful 2 weeks last week with the new data breach. But if you don't really categorize what you're using, it's really hard to know what to look for and what to test for. And it's really important then to know your adversaries as well. Because if you don't know who is attacking you, if they're coming with horses or tanks, it's really different defense budget for what kind of infrastructure you need and what you need to test for. So it's really important to start to think about what kind of changes you do. If a company changes different vendors, Windows customers, it will have different needs in regards of security and testing. And that's a good way to do it as well. And for people, like I said, TTPs was getting more known, but when I started, it was not common language what it even was. But it's a really good common language between the red team and the blue team perspective. So, I mean, from red team, you normally talk about, oh, we did this nice spear phishing email, we got this Trojan PDF running and getting our C2 up. But from the blue team perspective, it's more like, oh, we had some email anomalies, some endpoint trigger and PDF alerts, and we have some weird DNS activity. And together with the TTPs, you can have a more common language that should talk about the same thing. And the same thing with going on the focus on these TTPs is looking at, it's hard to speak without mentioning the pyramid of pain by David Bianco, because it's been a lot of studies showing that for an attacker to change his IP address or hash values is quite easy, but if changing infrastructure gets harder and harder, change tools, it's tough as well. But if you're changing your whole methodology, like your operandi modulus, how to perform the attacks, it's really tough. So that's why when looking at threat actors, they filter it down to the TPs. And that's also very well documented to work with. And the same, when you're doing this for your company, is you need to look at what kind of adversaries, when you start filtering them out, it's like, how will this adversary, is it very common to attack our nation level, or is it this sector? Maybe it's easy to filter out like the gas or oil industry or research facilities or NATO companies or anything that's been active. So this is more of a rating to when you start filtering a lot of adversaries that could be potentially attacking you to make your own proactive responses. Sorry. So, a good tool that we mentioned, I see a lot of talks here, is the attack MITRE. That is a wealth of information, because you have so many groups mentioned here that you can study what kind of field they will be attacking in. So you will be able to scroll down, pick out what kind of adversaries that you want to test for. And when doing this, when you've done your profile, it will be quite easy to filter out which kind of adversaries would be in the interest for testing. And you will also see when you scroll down, it's very well documented what kind of campaigns they've done. There's a lot of reading material, and there are a lot of techniques very well to the command that run to doing this. And the good thing you will see later on when you're using open source tools is that they've actually been documented all the way. So it's very easy to run these campaigns or these operations, depending on what you're using. And when you're running these campaigns as well, or this kind of adversary attacks, you can see you have something called Attack Navigator that we'll be coming back to later on after running demo. It's very well documented. If you look to the left, you see start of the normal kill chain, where how they discover it, the foothold part, until to the middle with privilege escalation, how they move around in the network, to the data exploration. So you can actually start just circling in where it starts, how it travels through the network, and how it's finished. So it's actually a good way also to document it. But we will get back to that. There are many nice features for it when we're doing our emulation plans. Because when doing normal emulations plan, we normally put up it to the 3 steps: the initial part, the initial foothold, the initial compromise. And we describe the phase 2 in our emulation plan. We will look more at the network propagation, like the lateral movement inside the network, the privilege escalation. So that's the second part. And then we do the last part with all this data collected and what it's doing for the objective. And we will see there are a lot of frameworks that actually filter out these 3 steps, so it makes it much easier. And of course, the Attack Navigator we looked at has done that as well. So you have the first step up to the execution. And if you go from the execution to the data collection part, you have the phase 2, and phase 3 is the data collection. And even if you look like the unified kill chain, it's really easy to see that they also have put this kind of pattern where you can easily see what's happening on the first part of attack, how the attack moves on in the middle, how it progresses, and what it does in the end, how it exfiltrates are working to do it. So there are many frameworks to show this, to make it easy. And there are also a lot of good reports available on the internet. Here you will have as well on my slides, but if you do in the QR code in the end, you will also have this easy to download. So you can read full emulation plans in the end to really understand how well documented it is. So it's a good way to step in. And if you've done your own threat intel and you take out what you want to test, it's a really good way before getting testers in that you have played scenario cards, what you want to try your resilience against the firewalls or XDR, or what do you do. So you can actually quite easily start filtering out called field emulation plans, or field manuals, or playing cards. There are many different names you will see. So some organization you can do is like, oh, we did this threat intel, we looked at these adversaries, we took out these are kind of commands, or leaving off the land. Can you look at it to see if it's possible for us to log this attack, or if we are resilient against them? And the same is you will see also like playing cards, like profiles you can see on your red team engagements, like we want to try this threat actor and maybe this ATP 20 hours in Turla, and you can read them and studies like, oh, we want to do for the pen testing team, oh, you need to look at, maybe you can use more the Mimikatz for dumping memory, you want to use more VMI, PSX for lateral movement, and we want to use DNS for the C2. So it's much more structured way of doing pen test. You're not going out like cowboys just shooting like, oh, we're this worth and this worth, but you're going more with a structured plan ahead of what is expected. And it's easy to get coverage when doing the testing that as well. Sorry, a bit of cold. So let's just sum all these basics and do a field study of something. So just a random name, Basalt, and nothing to with our company, of course. Just let's call it this theoretical company that went from doing software from the private sector to developing software for the Swedish military. And this is a classic way to have a different type of adversaries. When you're just doing to the public sector, you're maybe not even in the scope for state nation actors. But when you're doing it for the military, you're starting getting new customers, you're getting a new adversarial space as well. So it's really important to look out to what kind of companies or adversaries will start look for you. So this Swedish company, of course, based in Sweden, and recently joined NATO. With NATO, you get a lot of good new friends, power alliance, but you also get a bigger target on your back. So when reading this, we're starting also as well for this company to look into what kind of threat actors would be interested for it. So one of them, of course, is Russian. It's very active with a lot of state actors in it. And when we're doing like threat intel, reading into this, you can see really just reading the first lines of the new cyber tactics. It's really relevant for us to start looking at more bigger adversaries. We expect the companies developing software for critical infrastructure military would be active target in the long-term perspective. So the supply chain of software to the Swedish military then will be, all the companies developing it will be in scope for probably attacks. So a good way then to start is just picking out some Russian threat actors or the one who can be mapped to it and look at it. And seeing it like this, you can see that a lot of different threat actors have a lot of different, even if they have a common goal, they will use different tactics getting those goals. So you will see that some use hardware on or spear phishing for initial access, credentials going from LMR poisoning to brute force, so there are many different ways to get to the goal. So you need really to start filtering out, but it's good to start with a list of which kind of threat actors will be of interest, and we will look a little bit how we can filter it down before running a demo. So a good thing with this, we're going back to the attack navigator, is that you can composite multiple threat actors on the same picture. So for us, let's take out two of them, the ATB28 and ATB29. We can just composite them over one layer, and we can see that if we want the most bang for the buck, we can do the ones that's mentioned in green, because they are shown in both threat actors. So those are probably a good way to start to get ahead with testing. And you can also do something called micro-emulation, so you can just start testing the initial discovery or the foothold tests, or you can just see if you can fetch the encrypted data channel C2 at the end. So you can just test a little part of it as well when you're doing the emulation, see if the new firewalls will be able to take this encrypted information. So looking at the initial foothold, you can see that, here are probably a few techniques that's really good to start at. And as well, for the network propagation, you fill in this in your plan, that all the green ones can be a good way to take the next step as well, to start testing. Of course, over time, you want to try as many as possible. And the same well for what's getting out. But we need to start filtering down when you have all of these techniques as well, because not everything is a threat. You really need to filter out, or else we will have so much to do, and not even everything is relevant. So the trifecta of a threat, I mean, there needs to be an opportunity, there needs to be some kind of intent and capability. So I think I saw a good slide on LinkedIn. I tried to recopy it. But an opportunity is like you see in a house with an open window. If there's no open windows, it's not easy to get in the house. But an opportunity is someone left the window open. A capability is an intruder who is carrying a ladder to get into the window. So if there is someone who wants to intrude and get into your house but doesn't have a ladder, it will not be a threat because he will still be on the bottom floor. And if there's no one with intent, it doesn't matter if the ladder is open, ladder there and the window is open, then it's no trouble as well. So there really needs to be some kind of opportunity when talking about this. And it means some kind of capability, some person that has the capability to use this window, and someone who wants to get in. And as well, when doing with state actors, you should not forget as well, they're very skilled, they have a lot of resources, but they're very patient. So we also need to factor in the chance that we might actually have employed someone from the threat actor group running inside the company. So we really need to look at that vector as well. Someone might actually have credentials in the system right now. So even that we need to look at attacks for. So back to these opportunities to filter it down. So a good way to look is like, oh, are we still using open USB ports? Okay, then we can filter out the threat actors who has that as the first initial foothold with USB drops. Or are we exposing our emails in a good way that's easy to guess what kind of users are at the company? Then spear phishing probably is a good way also to test. And the same is if you have your office in a central downtown, maybe it's easy as well to get Wi-Fi access or put up some rogue access points. So this is a good way to start thinking about what kind of possibilities you should check for. So you don't need to test all threat actors. You really need to figure out what opportunities can we do so we can do good scenarios to test. So for us, it would be a good way to just filter down to, let's try the ATP29. And like you see, there's a lot of nice cards for playing cards when doing some red teaming or some testing for dissemination plans. So this one was taken from SOC Radar. I think it's quite nice graphics. And what they do is they actually focus a lot on the spear phishing part. So there is the initial part, and we have decided our opportunity is spear phishing. So that's a good way to look at it. So let's try to focus on that. But when we don't do it, we want to use a tool, because the important part when doing emulation is doing it continuously, to be new, evaluate. When doing changes, when you put up new intel, they should be easy to rerun it to see that we are up to date. So we can really stay proactive of the attacks. And there are many tools for this. We haven't tried them all, but there are a lot of commercial ones, like Skiff. But there are also a lot of open source tools, like Atomic Red Team and Caldera. And for this demo that actually worked for us quite well is Caldera. And the good thing with it, it comes with a lot of already finished operation plans, simulating different ATPs. You have a lot of the MITRE attacks, the TTPs, a lot, I think it's 2,000 or more kind of attacks you can already try and see how your infrastructure works with it. Easy to change it up. So let's look at a quick demo, how it can look when setting this up. So you have agents running on the machines you want to test, and you log in, you create a kind of agent like Metasploit. So you can use for Windows, for Linux, and you have like a PowerShell script, or you can use a bash one-liner to reconnect back to the Caldera server to start running the agents. So just an easy way is to deploy a PowerShell script for running this, and then you will be connected with an agent for the system you want to test. So this is quite easy to roll out on a big scale and do testing. And it will be automatically testing for it. And as well, like I said, it comes with a lot of threat actors already in this. So you can do a new operation by using already known adversaries in this. So for us, it will be the ATP29. So we can just start something called an operation, and that's when you put your own adversary. You can combine multiple and do many, many different types of it. But these I recommend for yourself to play around with. I put in a Caldera VM where I put down some test agents. You can just use the QR code, download, and try for yourself, or install it by the Git repository. And so you just roll it out and you just run the emulation campaign. It's not much harder than that to just get started. And what you will see, it's really hard. I don't know if you can see it close to the screens, but you will see that it tries different execution, different tactics. So everything is mapped to this like TTPs scenarios. So it's quite easy to see, oh, we tried this kind of discovery, that worked, that didn't work. And even if it did work, did we manage to log it on our CM system? How is our resilience against these kind of living off the lands attacks or discovery phases? So it's a good way to roll out on a big scale to see what machines did handle it and did not handle it. And like I said, you can see it, you will see the commands running, the input back, and everything like this. So, and even when you finish setting up your adversary when you test this for the ATP29, you will see that, oh, we did in this attacks, we want to test for this. and then you can just get out a JSON you can upload to the MITRE network, to the MITRE Navigator to see what test you did. So for ourselves, we can see that the coverage for our test this time, it tried the C2 exfiltration, encrypted, and it tried this kind of attack. So you see, it's really handy if you're doing a lot of penetration yearly. You can switch it up and ask them to do different kind of tests for previous escalation. You can try different lateral movement attacks. So it's much easier to get coverage. So you're not doing the same test over and over again, but you may be more proactive in testing different response ways for your infrastructure. So I think it works really well. And there's a lot of open source tools like Vector, where you can actually add this as well. And you can get a nice visualization to see what the blue team did, red team did, and the blue team, what they catched. So for monitoring purposes, to just get you up to speed when doing these purple exercises. So it's a good exercise to do together. And it's really easy to document, even when you're doing the red team engagement, what kind of attacks you did, and afterwards checking what they did. So it's really good combination. And like I said, it's open source and really easy to use. So to summarize a little bit, so what makes a good emulation plan? Well, don't care what framework you use. I would just say, if you use a framework that makes it possible to document every step and it's repeatable, it's a good framework. And I won't deep dive any more into it. It's also a good emulation plan if you have done some thinking about what kind of threat actors you selected. You have some thought behind it, because then it's much easier in the way to make more proactive, to change them up. And it's also good that you have made some own identified the opportunities within your company. Is it you're trying the hardware drops, or you're trying the spear phishing, or it will be something else that could be of interest due to open emails? Are we using this or that system? So it's much, much better to think about it this way, because then you get good scenarios to try, and you can say, oh, well, let's run this scenario this year. Next year, we can try this kind of scenario based on this kind of opportunities. So there are a lot of good ways just to get a more broad kind of pen testing. So there are a lot of good links on this as well to read more, and it's in the slides. But just for everyone is tired, I found a good video to summarize everything, if audio is with me.
Doesn't matter. There are only 4 rules you need to remember. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan.
So that's quite easy with it. So I see that's quite on point with time I had for this. So here you have a, what? Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
We've got a couple of minutes for questions.
Yeah.
No? Well, we don't. Oh.